Hi there, how are y'all doing? So this is Waldo's Wacky World of Film, and today we're going to be talking about the 1994 movie The Mask, directed by Chuck Russell, and starring Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz. Now the thing to note about Cameron Diaz is that this is actually her very first movie, and so she's actually introducing herself in this movie, kind of like the same way that Johnny Depp was introducing himself in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Just a classic movie of sorts, introducing a, I guess, classic esque kind of star. Let's put it this way: I have pictures with both of with both of them from the Wax Museum in Las Vegas. So they've at least done well enough for themselves to get that far. But on top of introducing the world to Cameron Diaz, this was quite the movie for Jim Carrey. And this was one of three movies around the same time in 1994 with the Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Dumb and Dumber, along with The Mask, that really just catapulted Jim Carrey into its own kind of celebrity dumb and really made him quite the aspiration for teenage boys everywhere, along with plenty of other people too. So, what's this movie really about? Well, okay, you have this guy that's a banker, and he's played by Jim Carrey, and he's trying to pick up this coworker of his of the female persuasion, and he tries to convince her to go with him to buy tickets and how he bought a pair. And she talks about how she's so happy, but that she really has this good friend of hers that wants to go with. But he ends up just being such a nice guy that he ends up giving both tickets that he bought for him to go with her to her at her own discretion, and her ass ain't gonna use him. Now, mind you, this is not Cameron Diaz's character, but this is just some, I don't know, some frizzy-haired bimbo for all we know or care. She's really got no other use in this movie besides that. So then this guy, Nico, essentially, comes up and just pretty much plays the audience in this scene. He's just like, really, dude? That's your problem? Really? That's the way you're gonna go about it? Dweeb. So anyway, the banker is named Stanley Ipkiss, and that name kind of runs in a funny way. For one, it's the first Stanley I've worked with in one of these reviews that's not Kubrick. For another, Ipkiss ends up getting used as the punchline later, his last name. So that works. You can Ipkiss my ass. Funny. Um, then you have uh, Cameron Diaz from 3 o'clock walk in, and she's in this short little red dress, and you're just thinking, really? This is quite the outfit for the bank. I mean, I know you're talking about a steal, but damn! But she does make a fantastic entrance. You know, this is her first movie role, and so this is how she comes onto the big screen. Gotta give her props on that one. But yeah, so she comes up to Stanley and starts talking to him about his tie and how she's supposedly going to open up a new account. But is she really? You know, she seems a little out of Jim Carrey's league. Um, it turns out that she's not really looking to do it, but that she actually has a boyfriend, of course, and that she is setting up her purse to get a solid view of the vault, which happens to be quite in the public eye considering how secretive the vault is supposed to be. Sure. Okay, fine. And she has her way of flirting with Mr. Carey or Mr. Ipkiss and looking at his tie. And Mr. Ipkiss is talking about the Rorschach, whatever, the ink blot test. That's the real big takeaway from here. And how it just kind of exploded onto his tie. Yeah, it's got all these like musical instruments and all these fancy jazzy. So Nico talks to Jim Carrey about how the Coco Bonga, the club, this really swanky nightclub, is having one of its grand opening nights, and all the hot shots are going to be there, and how Jim Carrey should totally be there too, but his car's in the mechanics, and these mechanics are super seedy, and it's so obvious, but you can tell there's going to be a setup for payback. Don't worry, it does get paid back. But Stanley Ipkiss is just such a pushover, and it's almost irritatingly pushed over, and it's just like, oh damn it, dude. But I guess that really just gets under your skin so that when the later parts in the movie come in, you're waiting for him to destroy the living bejesus out of them. Anyway, um, he just gets pushed over left and right, and he takes this clunker with him from the mechanic. Yeah, just awful POS, and it pretty much just breaks apart right in front of him, and he tries to get it away, but the valet keeps pulling up his car, and then he gets kicked out of the club because it took so long. He tries to get in because he thinks he gets in with Nico and all these babes that Nico picks up, which I gotta ask, how does Nico have these connections? I guess he paid for them. Sure, whatever. Um, Jim Carrey comes in too late, but then he sees Cameron Diaz again, except she looks like Beetlejuice with boobs. It's pretty great. And Stanley Ipkiss is just so frustrated because, damn it, he's not gonna go see her in the club. Ugh, the horror. So he gets ejected out because he thinks he's gonna get in, and of course these bouncers are always trying to compensate for their lack of goods and trying to be all macho men. So they kick him out, and then he takes his car out, and it just breaks down further and further, and he gets more and more irritated, and he thinks he sees someone out in the water, but then it turns out it's this mask, which from the beginning of the movie was shown to be unleashed out into the world, and he takes this mask because someone sees him down and tries to bust him, like from the cops. And he's just like, nope, just get my mask. That's what I'm doing. And he goes back home, and he's got a really bitchy landlord too. And she's even, oh, ooh, she's the, how do I put it? She makes the C word look like a good option. So, yeah, he just keeps getting pushed over, and you're just like, come on, dude, just move on. Well, okay, it turns out that this mask is super creepy and freaky and sticks on his face, and he does all these wacky antics, and probably the best word to describe him is zany, and he smashes an alarm clock with, with like a mallet or a hammer or some shit. And then he like whacks it into the wall, and it breaks, and the landlord is just super, super, super bitchy, because that's probably a better word. And he pretty much just wreaks havoc on her and tries to kill her, basically. And he escapes, and he thinks, and then he takes the mask off at some point after all that. Like, so he still has the mask on, and now he's pissed, right? So it's not just a landlord that's he's been waiting to get back at. He goes back, and messes with the people that were messing with him, and then he goes back, and he wakes up and thinks it was a dream, right? And then the FBI is there at his door asking him about something. He's just like, I don't know. And then he looks at the mask, and he's like, oh my god, was that me? And it turns out that, yeah, that was me. And he just unleashed a Tommy gun made out of a balloon animal that he used to fool all these goons that were chasing him and hounding him for money. It's pretty great. There turns out to be a really snooty reporter named Peggy, and she is just dying to get some big break and some actual juice on something in the city, and you have these bank robbers who try to break in, but the mask actually beats them to it because he needs the money to go to the club, and now he's all in his big attire and his fancy yellow suit and his ghastly green mask, and the bouncer's like, "Oh, so who do you know here?" And the mask goes, "Well, I got my friends, Franklin, Grant, and Johnson." It's pretty fun. And he goes in there, and all these effects come into play. This is probably the coolest part of the movie. You've got this kind of mob-esque feel, all these dirty criminals trying to do all these very gangster-esque things. Not Tupac gangster, but Al Capone gangster. All right, and you have Cameron Diaz turns out to be like the big time singer, and she's got all of her fame and money and whatnot. But you can tell she's not happy. Her boyfriend's the wannabe head honcho of this group, and he's a nightmare, frankly. Um, she wants something else, obviously, and the mask actually ends up going up on stage and dancing with her and doing all these provocative things, and they have all these dance sequences. It's pretty fun. Um, and of course, you have some innuendo. Oh, surprise! Um, you have Jim Carrey's howling like a dog, like as if it was a full moon or something. And you also have his jaw literally dropped to the table as he's just staring at Cameron Diaz's beauty. And I gotta be honest, I wouldn't my jaw couldn't go that far, but metaphorically, yeah. Yeah, it would. I agree, Jim Carrey. You were right. You just have more CGI than I ever could. So conflict really arises in this movie when Cameron Diaz's heart grows more and more for the masked character as well as Stanley Ipkiss, though you realize relatively soon that she actually likes Stanley Ipkiss because he's actually a really sweet guy, and she happens to really adore him for that. Um, but additionally, the conflict further develops when the FBI guy burst into Jim Carrey's apartment when he was wearing this awful set of pajamas, and he made a comment about it. Well, when when Jim Carrey turned into the mask, his pajamas turned into this suit, and when certain elements of the mask's outfit were cut, it went back into its original form. So he saw fabric of that really ugly set of pajamas, the FBI guy did, and he knows now that Jim Carrey is the mask. And Tina is the one being played by Cameron Diaz here. She knows because his tie, the one with the Rorschach test, had the same kind of thing happen to it when it was cut. It turned into that same tie, and she's like, "Oh, I know that tie." Um, and the mask really gets to be an annoying character. Not on our end, he's a riot to watch. But in terms of annoying Cameron Diaz, yeah, he gets pretty annoying to her. Um, she actually ends up working with the FBI as well. It seems like anyway. If she wasn't working with them, they had a really good way of following her around. Um, she actually ends up visiting Jim Carrey in jail because he gets locked up, and she comes up and actually is about to kiss him, and then the FBI guy comes and says visitation's over, and Jim Carrey's really pissed, and I'm really pissed. I'm just like, well, oh, wait, that's right. There's that thing of wait till the very end. You'll get the payoff of the big kiss. Yeah. I'll probably like it a lot more that way. I mean, you have this thing constantly happen to these kinds of movies. You have these two characters that are kind of towards each other, or they really aren't in the same leagues as each other, right? And then you have some budding friendship, and then you have some closeness, and then you have some conflict, and then it goes back and forth, and then a big payoff in the end. So The Mask is more or less following that formula. But, the payoff at the end is, well, we'll get there. So then I should mention too that Jim Carrey actually has this dog named Milo, and it actually goes full circle with the dog in the next film, Son of the Mask, which I'll be talking about after this, and then in another review. But Jim Carrey's dog Milo comes to the rescue. He manages to know quite a bit. He's a knowledgeable little scamp. He ends up bringing the mask to Jim Carrey, and he pulls even more antics. You have to wonder just how many antics can this guy pull. Most of the antics that are pulled are pretty much drawn out of Jim Carrey's stand-up routine, which Jim Carrey's a pretty funny guy. I'm not gonna lie, and it's great. He has quite a few impersonations up his sleeve. They're all pretty fun. I can't even. I'm sure there's one or two that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but. So what else happens? Well, it turns out that Tina's old boyfriend doesn't really trust her anymore, and he ends up consulting Peggy, which pulls off the biggest surprise of the movie, the fact that she was actually working with Tina's old boyfriend just to get 50 grand. It genuinely surprised me because Peggy comes off as this reporter, just a dirty reporter on her own end, not even a reporter that works with other people, Not only is she bad, but she's bad in conspirators too. Ugh, that's spooky. Another thing is that the mask ends up getting onto Tina's old boyfriend and his face, and after the discussion with Ben Stein, who had all this mythology about the masks and whatnot, and then with the Norse mythology and Zeus and Loki and the gods, he tells Jim Carrey that it brings out the innermost desires of the person that wears the mask. And so Tina's old boyfriend, when he wears it, he has a very, very murderous and scary face. And one cool thing about him is that he spits out bullets. It's cool, all right? It's cool. But everything else about him is just scary, and you just want him to die. Because he's just going to keep wreaking havoc until he does. That's the fact of the matter here. So after a little bit of impracticality in terms of Jim Carrey sneaking out of the prison and getting the FBI guy to go along with him on this escapade, and he goes back to the Cocabanga, and he pulls all these crazy effects, and Cameron Diaz is there to help him out when he really needs it, as he always is going to. The bad guy ends up getting flushed down the toilet that comes. Okay, sure. There's a piss joke or two thrown in there at the end. We haven't had too many of those. Okay, sure, whatever. And the first one was actually really funny. It really was. The dog doing the dog had the piss joke, and it was just hilarious. All right, I laughed. And then it ends, and you have Nico, the hotshot guy, not having any women around him. He tends to hang out with all the floozies. Well, sure. You have Jim Carrey. I almost said Jim Cameron. Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz together at last. They have their big kiss, and it ends. And they all dive down. Nico and the dog all hop off the bridge into the water. How they didn't die, I'm impressed. Okay, sure, screw it. And then the movie ends, and it's really nice. So what do I really like about this movie? Well, it does have that sense of closure. Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz do get together in the end. The bad guy does get flushed down the toilet and drain, whatever. You have quite a bit of the noir, I guess is what the word I'd want to use is. All these, like, Al Capone gangsters and all this mob talk and bank robberies and Cameron Diaz and the mask. Oh, dude, the mask was awesome. So the character of the mask too, not just the movie. The movie was great. Um, this had a really good mixture of computer effects as well as seemingly practical effects. The computer effects really helped leap off the page. I'm not really the biggest one in terms of determining what is CGI and what is not, but the effects that I saw, regardless, I really enjoyed. I liked having the alarm clock getting smashed, the mallet into the apartment wall, the eyes popping out, the jaw hitting the table, the the swirling, all of it. It was great. It was so much fun. Having the Cuban Pete doing all the fast changes and all the different characters that the mask could be was pretty awesome. I really like the message that this movie had too. You had this very shy guy in the beginning, just a complete pushover, and Hollywood has that fun way of uh, making things that aren't necessarily reality a reality in movie land. And this is a good story to make a reality. You have a guy that was a pushover and finally gets some strength, albeit this is a little bit of out of this world strength, I would say. A little hard to get, but it gives you the feel that, okay, if this guy can overcome it, we can find our ways to overcome it too. Just may not be that easy in terms of having a mask come from the gods. We have to work a little harder at it, but it is doable. And the chemistry between Cameron Diaz and Jim Carrey was great. I felt that Cameron Diaz was truly working with the bad guy and trying to be all coy and all flirty and hitting all the right spots. And then she really started to fall for Jim Carrey because he really was just that nice of a guy and just a charmer. And then when they actually would have conversations, and they actually did have conversations, both with him as the mask and with him as himself. Uh, they really got to grow that relationship, and you know, the mask comes out, and he's all excited, and Tina, and Cameron Diaz, is just like, well, I really like Stanley, you know. And when she's talking with Stanley, and Stanley's all, I can get the mask for you, and she's like, well, I want to see Stanley. I want, I want him. And it's just, it gives you hope. It really does. And she's so sweet. And it helps that she's smoking hot too. But she is incredibly sweet. That's really the moral of the story, all right? And yeah, I mean the mix with the love, the comedy, the drama, the stakes, having the dog Milo, um, the bumbling FBI guy even he was actually pretty funny. He had a little bit of an arc too. He was like, oh well, maybe I don't have to be a complete asshole. Okay. And it was actually pretty funny because there's one scene where the mask turns into Cuban Pete and he does all this whole like song and dance and everyone in the city's doing the song and dance. And even the bumbling cop that works with the FBI guy starts getting suckered into, and the FBI guy looks at him and he's just like, "You start dancing, I'll kill you." You got to have at least a couple of, if not at least one, hard nosed cops in there to make sure that justice is being served, no matter who the perpetrator is. Fair enough. You had this reporter of Peggy Brand. She was entertaining. She seemed very much like that reporter type. She did a great job, the actress for her. Um, had that great tenacity, had that great nerve and audacity within her to really pursue what she was looking for. Jim Carrey is a hoot. He's so funny. This movie really uh, exemplified all of his zany antics. Um, yeah, in terms of a grade, I really can't think of anything wrong with it. The effects were superb. Um, I, in terms of source material, I haven't read the comics. So I don't know everything it ties out to. I do know that the comics were fairly dark, from what I've heard anyway. Um, yeah, I thought it was a great interaction between everyone. So I would probably, since I don't really have any dingers on this one, I probably would go between an A and an A minus. And honestly, the directing was great and everything about it was great. So I probably would actually give it an A. And so there you go. So what makes this movie A-worthy? The writing. Just to give you an example, I'll take my favorite line from this movie. Most men think monogamy is some kind of wood. It's jokes like that that keep me coming back. So, what about this movie's sequel, Son of the Mask? How will it live up to its predecessor? Well, I'll give you a hint. It was on the bottom 100, so probably not too well. But is it really as bad as it's been made out to be? We will find out soon enough, and you shall see, and I shall see as well. All right, y'all have a great day now. Bye.